Hello everyone, I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Komette, and welcome to the Gorehounds Playground here in Fort Collins, Colorado. This is Booze and Booze, where we pair unique alcoholic beverages with our reviews of different horror movies.
And this week we're going to be talking about I Saw the Devil by Kimchy Bloody Mary. It's a 2010 horror flick that's full on revenge, and it is brutal.
Yeah, and now we're going to go to the kitchen where I'm going to teach you this week's drink.
Hello, and welcome to the kitchen. Here I am going to be making this week's drink. This week's movie is going to be I Saw the Devil, and it's a Korean horror film that is a bit extreme, so I wanted to make a drink that captured both of those essence. Today we are going to be making a Kimchy Bloody Mary. For those who don't know, kimchi is a fermented cabbage that originated from Korea. So, the first thing we're going to do is take our glass and we're going to add ice to it and the garnishes that we want. I really love celery and a pickle, so that's what I added. Put that to the side. It's okay if it melts a little bit because the concoction that we're making is a bit thick. Then what we're going to do is add 1 shot, 1.5 ounces of vodka. And since it was a bit loud, I already did this next part off camera. I don't want you to be listening to my blender. But in a blender, I added a full container of kimchi, which this is the one that I got. I got the spicy kind because I like spicy Bloody Marys. I also added V8, some sherry vinegar, and some Worcestershire, and blended it up till it was the consistency that I want. There's no exact recipe for this because the way that Bloody Marys are is that everybody's is kind of catered to themselves. So some like more Worcestershire, some like it spicier. You can add a different hot sauce like sriracha, some like pickle juice in it. You just kind of do what you want. So I went ahead and did that, and now what we are going to do is I'm going to add some salt and pepper to it. And then I'm simply just going to pour it into this drink. And we're going to give it a really healthy stir. And because I really like Worcestershire, I'm probably going to add a couple more squirts to it. Perfect. And then I'm going to taste it to make sure that it has everything that I want in there. Oh, and that's a damn good Bloody Mary. Kimchy Bloody Mary for I Saw the Devil. Okay.
왜 이렇게 약한 척해? 이제 시작인데.
Well, that was I Saw the Devil, and it's definitely a bloodfest. It's not quite Dead Alive, but there's a lot of brutality in that movie, and that's sort of a fun one. Just prefacing right now, we're bad with Korean names, so we're just going to be referring to these guys as like the husband, the killer, things like that. I don't like having to do that, but I don't have a whiteboard or anything like that to remind us. So we're just going to go with that.
Yeah. I really enjoy this movie. I think it's really well made. The character development in it is pretty incredible. It is extremely brutal.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at it on the surface, the murder happens in the first 5-ish minutes. Mm-hmm. So it's a movie that just like really kicks you into it. So you wouldn't think that there's a ton of character development. There isn't for the wife, of course. No. But for our main character, we're basically watching him become almost as big of a monster as the person he's pursuing. And I think that's one of the big themes here is that true vengeance and revenge can break you if you just keep seeking it. It's like he could have had this thing done quickly, over with, no problems, had this guy in jail, but he chose to keep pursuing that vengeance route.
Yeah, he was trying to soothe his own grief and mourning in a way that he thought would fix it, and I don't think it fixed it in the end.
I really don't think so, especially because things backfired on him so much.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk direct spoilers. There are going to be some things that are spoilery, so if you haven't seen it, check it out. But it's the reason why it's brutal isn't just that he keeps on hunting the killer. It's that the killer is crafty and like also is friends with several other killers, cannibals, and other things in this movie, and it makes it so that there's a lot happening here. And you were talking earlier about how well shot it was, and there are a few action sequences in this movie that are just full on top tier.
It's incredible, amazing to watch. There are lots of cringing moments, at least for me, and even Tony, which I think you're pretty numb to. Body
horror can still get me.
Yeah, it's just like it's graphic. It is a very graphic film.
The Achilles thing was probably the one that slowed us down the most. I think as far as just squirming before. You guys might have seen that in the little precursor thing we do. But that moment where you're just watching and it's hold on, he's going to require medical care, and you're like, oh God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Because he's already been beat up, so I thought for a second, oh, it's that, and then it's you just see him. Yeah.
They show the entire thing.
And it's not that they insinuate that something happens, it's that they drive it in, saw around a little bit more, and then just rip.
Yeah, and I don't think that was the worst for me. I think anything that had to do with the head. Yeah. The beating of the head.
The concussive force, blood force trauma.
Yeah, the old man head.
Yeah, just hitting him with a weight and everything.
Squirt head, all of that. Absolutely. I can't do it. I can't. So I have to say, but I have a really big problem with watching people get hurt in general. So those videos of skaters. I started with skaters getting hurt when we were kids. That was a big thing.
GIFs will cause me a little bit of a lurch in my stomach sometimes, even if it's something small, like a kid scraping their knee in a weird way. Mm-hmm. So watching this really gets that discomfort just kind of flowing.
And that's a kind of a good part about it is that it's definitely getting a reaction out of you.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think the excessive amount of gore and brutality takes away from the story.
No, it really doesn't. It's because it's not sparing with it, but it's not as gratuitous as it could have been. It builds up its moments of gore and violence in these in-between sections where we're learning more about the characters and basically his pursuit. We're seeing his grief grow and seeing him become more brutal. We're seeing
how clever this guy is.
Yeah, because at the beginning he seems really outmatched because you've got the husband / agent guy taking him and beating the absolute ever-loving crap out of him as he's about to have his next victim. And it doesn't even look like a fair fight at all. I think he gets a little bit bruised up or scratched or something like that. But as the movie goes on and he starts to understand more about his opponent, you actually see the killer start to get the upper hand in some situations and actually start to kind of use his cunning to take over the situation and take it out of the agent's hand.
I think that it was an ego problem with the husband.
Yeah.
Because I'm not assumed, I don't know if that's the right word, but he figured that he would have a handle on this guy, and one moment ruins it, kind of. And
it was a moment that he was even protecting against, but they just got sloppy for a half second, so the guy was in the wind, and that was enough to completely ruin everything.
And we were keeping track because Tony and I had both seen it before, is that the killer, after being caught by the husband, there's only really one people that they insinuate that he actually kills afterwards. That is not an innocent.
Yeah. Well, there's only one innocent, and a lot of people got hurt, but there was definitely an innocent that was killed. And
they never showed it, though.
That's true.
For a movie that shows everything,
I think they pretty clearly insinuated that one.
Yeah, it's insinuated. So one could argue that he only killed those two people that were
the thieves.
They were not good people.
Which is another one of those action sequences that's just awesome. Good. You've got a very small space. There's that fight term, fighting in a phone booth, where it's just up close and you're just not letting anybody have space, and that's made even more literal whenever you're in a taxi cab. And you're just you see him shank, and they just have no control over what's happening, and it's just a brutal sequence. And I don't like whenever the protagonist has such a huge advantage over the antagonist at the beginning, but that starts showing him being pissed off and becoming the killer that he is. So like it's just a fascinating movie that really digs into the psyche of these people, and it covers grief in an unusual way.
Somebody who's skilled in fighting.
Yeah, a guy that really can't accept what's happened. And you see it in moments where it breaks through. He's so stoic most of the time, and then occasionally that wall breaks down. Especially in a part where he's beating with what's sort of a spear type thing.
Yeah, a harpoon maybe?
Yeah.
I do gotta applaud their acting, which we know the gentleman who plays the killer.
It's Min-sik Choi,
yeah.
Choi Min-sik. I'm not sure which goes first with the Korean language.
He has been in a lot of movies, and he is an incredible actor.
Yeah, he was
in
Odaisu.
Old Boy.
Yeah, he was Odaisu in Old Boy, which is one of my favorite movies. Another revenge movie. They say Korea is like the land of 1,000 revenge stories, and most of the ones I've seen out of there have been that, like the entire Revenge trilogy, The Man with No Name, or was it The Man with 1,000 Names? I can't remember. One of those types.
One of them. And then the husband, the protagonist, is also an amazing actor. They did a really
one of the
good job.
things I don't fully know with foreign films is if they're actually nailing their lines.
Oh.
I get the emotes, I get like how things are presented, but I
never
can't
thought about
always
that.
tell how it's delivered. Like I saw the movie Raw the other day, and I thought, wow, this is really well delivered, but I couldn't actually tell if it was good acting or if I was just really into the story and like the dialogue was on the screen, so it kind of detracts a little bit from what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I know that he was very good in Old Boy, and a lot of times acting and emoting are harder than just like reading your lines, so it feels like they did a very good job. You felt his pain a lot of times. You also were rooting for him most of the time.
Yeah.
Like there are times where you're like, he's just gone too far. Everybody's telling him just be done with it, and he won't listen.
He won't, yeah. I do gotta say, and usually it's funny, with him and Tony and I have been talking, we're only picking good movies so far. We gotta like throw like a really critical one in there.
Bomb in here,
but this was my third time seeing this movie, and I believe...
It was my second, I believe.
Yeah, his second. It kind of staggered.
Yeah, it's
a
a little
long
bit long.
movie.
It's 2 hours, 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And you feel that. Like, it feels
Very
like
much so.
it could be tightened up a little bit. Like, it's not a flawless movie in that sense. Like, if they made it exactly 2 hours or 2 hours and 10 minutes, you could probably take out a little bit of fluff. But there's also so many scenes where it's dynamic and interesting, like whenever he's talking to the cannibals and they're having these little asides that maybe don't forward the story entirely, but they're fascinating, and I
think
like
it's
them being
character
there.
development, but I gotta say the first time I watched it, I didn't feel that way. So
Yeah.
maybe it's more about rewatchability with this, is maybe 1 to 2 times, and
Yeah.
that's kind of maximum.
It was like 4-year difference for me, so it was a little bit easier for
Yeah.
me, but it still lagged a little bit because I knew what was coming. It was like I knew that guy's about to
Brutal.
get jacked up. I forgot a few aspects of the ending, but like it was, I don't know, it was still a fun watch, but it is a long movie. And whenever you're talking about subtitled movies, 2.5 hours is a lot of time to be watching something with subtitles. You definitely can't zone out that much.
No. And so what did you think of the ending?
I thought that it was interesting, and I was trying to figure out what they were trying to say with it. Because it's like, he ruined his family, so is he having his family ruined by him? Because they're sort of... Well, it's getting kind of spoilery. I'm trying to figure out the way to get around, like, outright stating it. I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to say, or if they're, like, delivering that to the family, or...
I think it was more not a way to hurt the family, I don't think. I think it was more of a way to hurt the killer. Because really, he didn't care about a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
not
well,
saying
he's a
that
psychopath.
not saying that he really cared about his family, but in those last few moments, he had to deal with
them being his end.
them being his end, and maybe I think
And
that
being
was the
exposed
most
for what he was.
torturous thing
Which,
that could have happened.
Yeah. One thing I will say about the end, and you had a pretty visceral reaction to this during, like, whenever he's talking about being at, like, the limits, and he just wants to live, and he wants this, and then all of a sudden you just see him kind of, like...
He turns.
Yeah, he turns, and you see the full psychopath underneath. Like, he's trying to make somebody feel sorry for him that obviously doesn't have the capacity to feel sorry for him. Not because the main guy's a psychopath. He's psychotic in some ways. He's definitely getting into the pain of all this. But... like, he feels, and the killer does not. The killer has no empathy, and he's good at pretending, but, like, that's whenever the mask slips and he just
That's where it goes,
lays it
yeah.
out. because it's the most haunting thing that he could do to that guy in that particular moment.
Yeah.
That or the easiest thing. I'm not sure which. I think because he wasn't buying it, he decided to just let it slip.
Well, I don't know. Because the guy wanted to hear that he was scared. The husband wanted to hear that he was scared.
That he was
and
in
that
pain.
he
that
was
he
in
was at the
pain. And
end of-
I think it was more of a spiteful, well, I actually don't feel, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of doing. Overall, this is a good movie. Worth watching at least once. If somebody is a bit squeamish, not your thing.
Yeah, like if you're with somebody that can't handle some body horror, be sure to just like let them cover their eyes and tell them whenever it's over. You're gonna need to do that a few times.
Yeah, even me, I'm not totally squeamish. I was hiding behind my pillow.
Yeah, I think it's just natural whenever it's done well enough.
Yeah.
Like you can't see it. I mean, even like stomping on a wrist or like just like some of the bone breaks and everything in this movie look so real.
Yeah.
Like some of the best I've seen in any movie. And I don't know, I keep getting drawn back to like some of the action in this, like whenever he kicks the shotgun and everything.
Oh,
and
that
just like that
part's
little
so good.
hallway sequence. That entire sequence in the house with the cannibals was awesome. He gets launched out of the house because he's trying to avoid the shotgun. Takes about like 5 seconds to compose himself and just runs right back in. Like there's just so much that's cool about this movie and the characters. And yeah, like
I recommend it.
Yeah, definitely recommend it. If you guys have recommendations for us here for Booze and Booze, we would love to hear them. Put them in the comments below. And just wanted to say thank you to Gorehound's Playground for letting us watch it here. Like you guys, if you're in Fort Collins, you got to check this place out.
Yes,
We've got
please.
an awesome giant screen here. It's comfortable. There's amazing movies. And just everything about this place is
One
incredible.
of the last places you can actually rent movies, like physical movies, which is really cool.
Yeah, and especially with the selection that's here. It's like whenever I'm doing 5 facts or anything like that, I'm starting to come here first instead of going online. It's just a cool hangout.
We also would never be able to do stuff like this without our patrons. So thank you so much to everyone who is our patron. Our special one for today is
Let's go with Rich Alex.
Rich Alex. Thank you so much. We would never be able to do this without you.
And if you want to become a patron, patreon.com/Human Echoes. Starts at $2 a month and goes up from there. You get lots of cool stuff, early access, the bonus podcast, pins, all sorts of things. So check
To
that
our
out.
server, our private
Yeah, to
Minecraft
servers,
server.
to all sorts of other stuff.
Perfect.
All right, see you guys next time with more Booze and Booze.